Ok, se você tá escutando esse episódio, você viu que o título é em inglês, o episódio é em inglês. Let's do this.
Good. cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase.
And here we go. Yeah. So let's just begin this thing. I don't want to spend many minutes introing. I just made it a verb. I made it as a verb.
Yeah, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of English, man.
Yes. So it's not in Portuguese. If you're listening to this is an episode in English. You've read the title, the name of the episode. And today we're going to talk about something we both love, drinking some beer, some booze, and we're going to talk about the rock and roll. Rock and roll. And then I have my buddy, my beardo guy, Felipe Xavier. Felipe Xavier. What the fuck, Felipe Xavier? Felipe Xavier. And Thiago Messiah. And this is the Best Life Podcast. Cheers.
You guys can't see us right now, but we're having a beer, and we're here to celebrate this. That, in my opinion, and if you think different than that, you're just wrong. It's the best style of music there is, right?
Man, I'll tell you what, rock and roll. It's the best music style ever made, and every year people come up with this rock and roll is dying. My ass, man. That's rock and roll is dying my ass. I don't know. It's been going on. Actually, it feels like everything began with rock and roll. Of course, it didn't begin with rock and roll, but I think it's one of the oldest styles ever, because it comes from the oldest styles ever, right? Which is like the mix of blues and jazz and all that jazz. You see what I did? And then we have rock and roll, which has been like, it's one of the most, I think it's one of the most, I wouldn't say appreciated, it's not, but it's one of the most interesting styles out there, because there are some kind of different inside rock and roll. I think it's the only rhythm we have that it's able to create some different ramifications. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Inside rock and roll. Mm-hmm. So that's the beauty. And then we can, like us being rock fans, we can navigate throughout these outlets, these styles.
In my opinion, rock is not only just like a music genre, you know? It has a whole culture, it has a whole attitude towards it, which is, I think that's the aspect that people say it's dying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because like rock and roll doesn't necessarily have nowadays the same protest vibe. We're going against the system, we're going to break everything. So it changed. Like other styles, they embrace that now. For example, if you check out like the United States, I think hip hop and rap, they embraced this
the attitude.
This attitude, you know.
The thing about hip hop and rap, they have always had those attitudes. But now they have been incorporating it a little bit more. But I know I get the idea what you're saying, because
it became popular now, right?
Exactly.
Because it used to be like an outcast, like an outsider, rap and hip hop. It was it was not like mainstream. Like if you take back like 10, 20 years ago, it was not mainstream. So, but now it is. Like now, I think it's the most listened genre right now in the United States. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if that's gonna be for a long time or not, but that doesn't really matter because it's been very popular recently. I don't know if I don't really know. I don't really understand this hip hop like wave, but I just know and I see that it's huge. Every day someone is like dropping out a hip hop record, and if not, they are mixing hip hop with rock. A lot of bands that we like, they are like hip hop based. We like some bands that they mix. They like take POD as an example. It's my favorite band of all times. They have influence from hip hop, from reggae, and it's just a mix of things, right?
Shut up and sit down.
But yeah. Let's go back. Let's go back a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you had a question to me.
Yeah, like when I had the idea of us making an episode to celebrate that, I didn't have anything in mind. I just remembered that the day of rock, like worldwide, it was coming. And I was like, hey, we talk about music so much in The Best Life, so I think it would be good we have like an homage to it.
For
right?
sure.
So, but I didn't have anything in mind, and right before we started, I wrote some things down, and one of the things that I wrote was like, is it possible for us right now to define rock? Like, what is rock for you? When you think about rock and roll, what comes to your mind? Like, if you were to explain to an alien that just got music, he's understanding like, whoa, music, you have all these genres and styles, and okay, I understand jazz. So jazz, it's not supposed to be understood. It's a crazy shit. Yeah. I understand classical music. I understand this, but what is rock? How can you explain rock, man?
Okay, all right. So my opinion is, and that's my take on it. I'm just telling you what I think and what I feel, and it's something that you said a few minutes ago. Rock and roll is, I think, mostly related to attitude because there are some considered pop bands, like pop rock, or I don't know. It's hard for us. I mean, it's hard for me to classify bands. Some of them, it's easy to identify and label them, right? So, this is this is that. But like rock and roll, man, let me try to explain to an alien. Rock and roll, it's a combination of, first of all, attitude, right? Combined with music that makes you want to dance at the same time and just break shit and break stuff.
Break shit.
And also at the same time, it gives you like a sensation of freedom. And so, that being said, not only those heavy metal, heavy rock will give you that, but if sometimes I get a like pop rock band, like very soft, mellow rock band, which is nowadays it doesn't fit in the standards of like what people would say like rock and roll is. Some of those bands, they make me tick, they make me go, they give me the chills, they make me wanna like scream my lungs out. They motivate me in a way that it feels like rock, But there, for me, there's still need to have some elements attached to like a rock band for me, a rock and roll, you know, which is
Like what?
which are guitars. We need to have guitars. We need to have real fucking drums. We
We're
gotta
not talking
hit.
about computer shit, electronic
No,
shit.
we're talking about like some sick bass lines, you know. But most importantly, some real drums and heavy guitars. Not specifically heavy, but gotta be guitars, drums, and shit
Electrical
like that.
guitars, right?
Exactly, electrical guitars, and so it's hard. It's hard to talk about this.
It's
So,
hard. It's hard.
You tell me, and we're gonna have to talk more about this thing.
All right.
Go ahead.
So
But you answer your own question now.
yeah, I think for me, like I agree with you, mostly everything about about your definition of it. But one thing that maybe I would tell someone that just asked me this question, what is rock? I think it's music that makes you feel for real. And let me explain better, because people say like, yeah, music always makes you feel. Yeah, but different. It's different. For example, one of my favorite rhythms is jazz, but I don't listen to a jazz album and I just start to feel my deepest feelings, or sometimes I feel like I want to get up and kill
up and
someone,
dance.
or
Yeah.
at the same time to get up and live the most of my day.
Yeah.
And you know, jazz, every time I listen to jazz, I just want to sit down, get a cup of coffee and relax.
yeah.
That's my jazz.
goes-
you know,
yeah, it
that's
goes-
my jazz idea.
It goes well with a cup of coffee, or for
Yeah.
me, even that I appreciate a good cup of tea as well. So it's more like when
Yeah,
you
like
get
a
jazz, like
a cup of wine, and you're talking to people,
Wine,
and there's
even better.
and there's jazz on the
Exactly.
background. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's more like a introspective vibe, introspective moment, right? But like I agree with you, like a rock that makes you like get up and dance. I really like Foo Fighters, one of my favorite bands of all time. I'm gonna talk about Foo Fighters, but I don't want people to crucify me, or I don't want people like saying, "Oh, but you're talking about Foo Fighters, but how about those Led Zeppelin, those bands that came before?" Okay, I'm not from that time. I didn't see them live. I'm talking about bands that it's from my quote unquote generation, and bands that I would rather listen now than in those old bands. But like I respect them. It's too complicated, man, to talk about our favorite kind of music. But what I want to say is that, for example, when I see
we're going without care here.
Yeah. So steps on eggshells, right? So what I'm talking about Foo Fighters is that because they are a mainstream band, they play all kinds of festivals, they play around the world, and they are a rock band. Okay, they are a rock band because they have guitars, they have drums, they have attitude. It's a band that they are constant, you know, because they've been playing music for 25 years now. They're completing 25 years now this month, right? So behind the music that they make, there is an attitude, there's history.
Yeah.
There are guys that they put their hearts and their fucking guts in their music, and they fucking play their instruments, and they fucking hop on a plane, they travel around the world, and they do their shit. Okay? All right. So when you see Dave Grohl, the lead singer, he's a showman. He's a true, like, he's a rocker. I'm talking about him again because, like, I follow him. I follow them. Like, I appreciate what they do. Of course, there are many other bands that do the same. Many other bands that they are not together anymore. Many other bands that they are together, they're still together, that they play rock. Some of like pop bands, they don't play rock, but they play pop. But I see them as like rockers. When I say rockers, like now, this word now, I'm saying like as a attitude, like a lifestyle. All right, so back to Foo Fighters. When you see Dave Grohl perform, man, you just want to get the fuck up and dance. Man, you just want to do good. You want to dance. You want to bang your fucking head. You just want to get in a mosh pit. And that's the stuff, right? So, but now let me compare just a little bit with Kings of Leon. Kings of Leon is another rock and roll band that I fucking love their music, man. I just adore them. Right, been following them for many years.
Completely different sound, by the way, from
exactly.
It's rock. It's rock just as much, but it's completely different. That's crazy and awesome at the same time, right?
It is amazing, and how you can appreciate, especially when you get two great, awesome singers and vocalists. Dave Grohl sings in a way, and Caleb, is his name Caleb? It's Caleb. Caleb is it's Caleb, yeah? The singer.
I don't know the names of Kings of Leon guys.
Yeah. They're all Followill. They're all like their last name are all Followill. They're all related. So they have different ways of singing, and of course different ways of rock. And then I love all their discography, Kings of Leon discography. And we see the attitude in the lyrics. We see the attitude in the music, you know. But when you see like a Kings of Leon concert, they don't have any fucking attitude, man. They don't. They're standing there. They're just playing the record. They're just playing the record.
To be honest, I don't like to watch them.
Yeah.
I like to listen to them.
Me too. I just like watching them, right? So what I'm saying is that they are a rock band. They play like top-notch rock, right? But they don't have the attitude. But that doesn't mean they don't play rock. So what I'm saying is that I just want to exemplify the ways of rock, okay? The kinds of rock we listen to.
I'm going to throw an example here, just because it's one of my favorite bands. It's like in my top 10 bands of all times, and they're old. Like you said, like I haven't lived in their time. Like half of them is not even alive anymore.
Okay, yeah.
But the Beatles, they are one of my favorite bands ever, right? Mm-hmm. We have several different Beatles. Each record of them, like they started, they were a specific way. Then they went to India and they smoked a lot of shit and they wrote Sgt. Pepper. So it's like you have different Beatles vibe, right?
Yeah.
But for me, the Beatles, they always make me feel something. Like, for example, when you take the idea of dancing, I don't even like to dance, but when I'm listening to Twist and Shout, I want to fucking dance, and I don't even like it, right? I don't even like. I'm not even into dancing. And at the same time, when I listen to Hey Jude, they start with the piano. Most rock bands, they don't even have a piano. Yeah. Like most of them, like the main stuff is the guitar, right? Mm-hmm. But then you listen to Paul McCartney starting with that piano, and then they sing, and they at the end they have just the na 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 na, and then like everybody comes and sing together, and it's like it feels like they are not on Earth anymore. Like there is a specific video that I like to watch from the Beatles. Is that I think they were playing in a specific TV, like a TV show back in their time. They are in a little studio, but there is a whole bunch of people watching them playing. They are kind of playing in the middle of the people, and then when they get to the na 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 na, like everybody starts singing together, and everybody's like interacting. And this video is like a 10-minute long, but the na 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 na, it's like 5 minutes because people start like going crazy and then singing together, and then Paul McCartney starts to do some voice stuff, and then man, it's amazing. Every time I see that video, I get chills. Like I'm gonna leave it here on the post of the episode. Like that's what I mean when I say that rock makes you feel like at the same time that you have a feeling listening to heavy shit, you can have the same feeling, like not the same feeling, but you can have like a deep feeling listening to a calm but yet rock. It's got some attitude to it.
Exactly. That's the attitude speaking, because they've been playing rock and roll. They've been playing some rock music, guitar driven, and then some songs they start playing with a piano, and then they get a hook, like a chorus, where they get like thousands of people singing at the same time. It's amazing, right? So again,
and every rock band has a ballad, by the way.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. And then I think that's why all this, there's a lot of heavy metal bands that they don't have like those kinds of music. So a lot of people, when I say that I like rock and roll, most of the people that don't understand very well, they just think that rock and roll is those heavy shit, that the songs are, the guys are always screaming heavy shit all the time, and fast drumming and all that thing, all those things. But we gotta have those ballads, right? So again, let's talk about Foo Fighters. They have this piano player for many years now, and it's part of the beauty of the thing. It's part of the attitude.
Yeah.
And I just feel that it is part of the attitude. Okay, let's throw this thing in our way now. Let's talk about like Coldplay, for example. Coldplay is not, I don't see them as a rock band, like playing rock.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But like, because
I think their first trilogy, I may even consider that like them as an alternative rock.
Exactly. So
pop, but there was still a rock seed on that.
I just completely agree with you, because if you take their first 3 albums, Coldplay has always been that band that is like a piano, acoustic guitar driven, because we see Chris Martin always writing the song like in the piano, in the guitar, like acoustic guitar. But if you take their first 3 albums, which by the way they're about to complete 20 fucking years of what's the first name of the Parachute?
Parachute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
They're completely like the guy playing the piano. Man, one of the first times I saw Coldplay playing live, I've talked about this before in a podcast. We talked about Coldplay. I saw them live, man, on Open TV playing, I think the song Clocks, I don't remember the song, or Politic or something like that. There is this piano that's playing all the time, and then the guy is just hammering the guitar, the fucking drums. That is beautiful, man. The combination of the piano, the melody of Chris Martin's voice, and the drums just bumping on your fucking head. That not even consider like heavy guitars, which they never had heavy guitars. That's fucking rock and roll, man. Look at the attitude. And now if you take...
I think it's like the combination of both, you know?
Yeah. And then you still, like, Coldplay still plays, and then they never had heavy guitars. They always had that drummer, which is a fantastic drummer, that guy. And you see a lot of piano. And still, to these days, when you see Chris Martin attitude, even playing those very, very mellow songs, very laid-back songs, no guitars at all, just piano. It's unbelievable, man. It motivates the shit out of me.
have another question for you that it's gonna take us back, but I just wanna go ahead and say that we talked about a few bands, like you mentioned Foo Fighters and Coldplay. I just wanna say that it's okay to say that Foo Fighters is maybe the best rock band now. There's no one like them. They are still respected as a rock band, and they are mainstream. So I think you can take that away from them. They are not one of my favorite bands,
Sure,
but man, it's impossible to see those guys and you don't respect them for what they do, especially because I think they changed something about rock that it's kind of I think it's maybe like a curse. Maybe people can see that as a curse from people in the music industry. You know, because Dave Grohl comes from being a drummer in Nirvana, which he lost his friend Kurt Cobain,
his best
right?
buddy, his best buddy.
Yeah, maybe that influenced him, but you don't see a lot of shit from them. You don't see them doing drugs or drinking as hell or hitting their wives or anything like that, you know? And and if you take a lot of rockers like of 20, 30 years ago or whatever, these guys were like they had the attitude, but they were a bunch of assholes. Like,
exactly,
they thought, let's just shoot some stuff here and be assholes and break shit. And I've never seen that. Of course, I'm aware that Foo Fighters guys are humans just like us and they have their flaws, but I don't see a lot of, big scandals about the guys, They're like, okay.
Yeah, it's when you see what you're talking about, man, it's interesting. It has to be said because back in the days, those, like the image of rock and roll we had, it was like, there are eras of rock. When you really go back to like Elvis time, right? They're just like all dressed with suits and shit, all that handsome, groomy people. And then talking about like let's go forward. It's like from the 70s, all those drugs and rock and roll, peace and love and sex and all those things, and then crazy attitudes, like really bad attitudes, like assholes, like you said, okay. And then nowadays we see these people like surviving 20 years being a band, 25, like just for fighters now, yeah. Coldplay like 20. Of course they had their time there where they had like their shit going on, but these bands that survived that long, just like Foo Fighters, now like they're all almost 50 years, almost 50, right? They do it for the love of rock, yeah. I see now Dave Grohl talking about they have just finished recording their latest album. They'll probably release it this year. And then I see him in an interview saying that they have made their best albums yet. So you see that the passion for music, right?
Yeah.
So many great albums they have put out, and then him saying, "Oh, that's the best one we've made," like. Man, you just feel excited to see what's up, what they're gonna do. Another thing I wanted to say is that you talked about the Beatles. Every album like is different. Like they've changed. They've paved the way, right? And because I think for them they were at the right time, at the right place,
for sure,
creating, making the music they made. And then coming to America, like bringing, And then we have been studying one of the Arctic Monkeys album, right? So I see Arctic Monkey just doing the same, because for me, Arctic Monkeys is one of my favorite bands now, rock bands, because they're kind of doing similar to what the Beatles did. Each album is different. Every album there is a different element. And now we see like their latest album from 2018 being completely like they just removed all the fucking guitars, just going on the piano.
They're experimenting, right?
Exactly. And I see that is amazing, man, because I see the attitude. I see it in the lyrics mostly. Even when you don't have heavy guitars or drums, there's drums on that album. But we just see the attitude of them, like writing the songs, going live and playing them live, and just it blows my mind. And I see, man, these motherfuckers have attitudes, you know?
Yeah.
And they just go around the planet touring and playing those songs, and people coming together and it's having a blast. It's amazing, man.
We've talked a lot because you and I know each other for like almost 10 years now. And we've talked a lot about music. Maybe not in podcast, what I'm going to ask, but I want to know what was your first rock band. And after that, what made you fall in love with it?
Every time like I think about this question, think about my first memories with rock, Petra comes to my mind.
Nice.
And I just have to thank my father every day for that, because at that time when I was, I don't know, maybe seven, I don't know, that's the 8 earliest memories I have now. My father, we used to go to church, right? So my father, he had just become a Christian, and then he was involved in church and all those things. And then I have already asked him this question, but he doesn't remember. But I remember that he had like Petra vinyls. And Petra, if you guys don't know, it's a Christian band, and they began in the 70s, I think, early 70s, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's changed. Late 60s, maybe.
Late 60s.
Like, I think they have an album in 68 or 69, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, damn. Yeah. So, and then the first album, 2 albums. First of them is from 1990. And I'm saying this, I was 8, probably, yeah. But I remember this album, and beyond belief, 1990, Petra, right? And then they had we had another vinyl, but that comes to my mind every time I think about first experience with rock and roll.
Nice.
So they are like 70s, 80s, 90s rock, you know? Back at that time, like the album was released in 1990. They don't have any trace of that characteristic 90 rock band. It's more towards like 70s, more like 80s, right? You know, those progressive rock.
Yeah, so, because they had just started the decade, so
yeah.
They like it wasn't like defined yet what the 90s rock would still be, you know?
Yeah. And before I just go on, finish answering the question, like what happened after that, you tell me, what was your first experience with rock?
Man, my first experience, it's interesting because my first experience with rock was not with like heavy rock or powerful rock. I think the first contact I had with rock was more with the attitude than with the sound. I grew up in church, and if you're listening to us in another side of the world, in Brazil in the 80s, 90s, and maybe early 2000s, they had a really big prejudice about rock in church, right?
Yeah. It was a taboo,
yeah, it was a big taboo. So we had, in Brazil, we had some bands that they dealt with it like for a long time, like being considered not Christian, although they were. So the first rock band I had contact with was a band called Oficina G3. And the first contact I had was with their acoustic album.
Ooh.
So it wasn't like with their
heaviest
with a lot. Yeah, it wasn't like electric guitars. It was just a band playing some songs, but the guitar player of the band he had like long hair, right?
The stereotype of like a rocker,
yeah, and when I think about today, he looked like a guy from Petra back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And he looked like a guy from Striper
in
the 80s.
Those guys, those Journey. I love Journey, the band Journey.
Yeah, like Journey guys. It was like he had the looks of hair metal.
Yeah.
Right?
Good. Yeah. People say that.
Like Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi used to have that hair, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, man, look at those guys. Like they were pretty different. Like the lead singer has his hair was red. And I was like, man, those guys look cool. But then
what's up with that?
Yeah, but then listening to their sound, and I remember like vividly. I don't have like a lot of memories from my childhood. I don't know why. But this is like a vivid memory that I have because I used to live in a specific city, and then I have an uncle that in that time he lived in a different city, and today he lives in another country, but whatever. And then he took like a tape of their album, like they recorded an acoustic live show.
Okay.
And then he got to my house with that tape. And then he put it on the TV. There were no DVDs yet on this time. And then he put it on the TV, and like these songs started to play, like Naves Imperiais and Espelhos Mágicos. And man, it was like, and I watched that thing. I was like, man. And let me tell you something. When I was a kid, I was really Christian. I'm not saying that I'm not today, but I was like really into it.
Right, religious.
Like, because,
like more like a religious.
Yeah, more like religious, yeah. So I was like, man, these guys, they are weird, but they're singing some shit that I believe.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's great.
They're singing some shit that I believe.
Yeah.
we should. I have an idea. Okay, go on. I'll tell you later. Let me just write this down first.
But then it was fun because after that, I was like I learned that they were a rock band, and back then there was no internet for me to go and look it up. But my uncle, he started showing me some other stuff, and then he showed me he showed me Petra, he showed me DC Talk, he showed me Striper. And then he showed me like this whole base of rock and roll bands that Oficina G3 here in Brazil, these were their references, right?
Yeah.
And they were making
Bride,
the same stuff
Guardian.
here in Brazil. Bride is like, man, they are some old shit too, right?
Get the fuck out of here, man.
It's beautiful. But then after a while, I discovered like bands that were not Christian, but I used to listen to them like in secrecy because my mom didn't let me. So but my first contact with rock, like it was with Christian bands.
Acoustic.
It was with a national band like from Brazil, like Oficina G3. But then I went to the same thing that you were introduced to, like Petra and these other whole generation of rock bands in the United States, you know?
It's funny because we kind of had a similar path. The difference is that you started from the national ones, and then I started from the international ones because of the background I had. and then we kind of like
merged at
we
some point.
merged, yeah. So you went from the national to the international ones, and I went from the international ones to the national ones because, and look, just to say about the acoustic of Oficina G3, I have listened to that acoustic record like countless times, and you see the attitude, and then you see a lot of bands, rock bands, recording acoustic shit. You just gotta applaud that.
Yeah.
And then it's amazing. Foo Fighters has done this. Like they have an acoustic album. It's amazing. It's beautiful. You see the attitude. Anyway, so yeah, man, it just gives me joy to hear you say about these bands because it's very similar to what happened to me after Petra. It was just learning. I was young, and then and from them, Petra, and then Oficina G3, and then DC Talk, and Bride, Guardian, and then from those
Guardian.
bands, we started.
Guardian, man.
Yeah.
They have that, like, you know that album, that Spanish album, Nunca Te Diré Adios?
Adios. Yes.
Man, I don't even like Spanish, man, but I love that album. Like, I love that album.
Nah, man, it's unbelievable. After those bands, because my Christian background started from those Christian bands, and then from those bands came in like this, what we would say nowadays is non-Christian band. So, and I also spent like a long time listening to those bands, like hidden from my parents, because they were considered like the devil's music. You know?
Yeah.
And it was great times, man, great times. And then I remember Catedral, Catedral.
Yeah. I know them, but I've never listened to them a lot.
Yeah, I used to listen.
I know
to them.
some songs. I used
to listen to them a lot, and then I remember that at the same time I was getting to know Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown Jr. in Brazil at that time, they had just released their first album back in 1997. So I remember vividly, man. I remember I was listening to DC Talk those years, that year. DC Talk, Supernatural, yeah? It was released the same year, I think.
Supernatural.
So DC Talk was blasting my ears. I remember listening to a lot of Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and then Charlie Brown Jr. came in. It was a time that I was getting into skateboarding. So Charlie Brown Jr. kind of, like opened up another part of rock and roll for me, because they have always mixed reggae and hip hop, rock, surf music.
Charlie Brown Jr. It's like POD in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
Like they have the. I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just saying that they have the same influences, maybe, right?
Sonny Sandoval told me that, man. I was talking to him like 2 months ago.
Here you come. Yeah. Okay. Your buddy, your best friend.
Yeah, man. I have a friend. His name is Sonny Sandoval. What's up, man? I was talking to him like back in May, 2 months ago. And he told me that someone once they were playing here in Brazil. By the way, he sings for a band called POD. And he told me, man, we were having a conversation, and he told me that they were playing a show here in Brazil back in the day. And then someone someone recommended him like a Charlie Brown Jr. album, and he was told that Charlie Brown is like a POD, a Brazilian POD. So yeah, it's my buddy. I was talking to him.
We've talked a lot about the meaning of rock and what is rock and our first contacts with it. Are we going to talk about our favorite shit?
For sure, man. For sure. Of course, we gotta.
Do you have like a top 3 rock bands? I know
I
what
don't
the
wanna-
first
I
one
know,
is.
I don't. Look. I just.
Man, let me just go ahead and say that I love it when we start talking about something and we want to do like a top something, right? Especially if it's about music.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, let's do our top 5 or top 10. And we're like, no, you see that's
And then it becomes hard. Yeah, man. It becomes kind of impossible. Look, let me tell you this. Top 1. It's POD. There's no like no one can take their place away. It's POD, and then after that,
it's hard.
I would say Foo Fighters, right?
Whoa.
But then after Foo Fighters, I can't say anymore. I don't have like the right place. I think all the rest of the rock bands that I like or the bands that I like, they just come at. It's all leveled up. For example, I just can't say which one is better than the other. That's it, it's possible. I say that for me, POD is the favorite one. It's my favorite. Let's stop first.
Yeah.
But like you go. It's fucking hard, man.
Yeah,
But
it's
let's
hard
just
because
list. Let's not put it in a sequence. Just
it's
tell me
hard
your
because
top
we
first.
stall a lot, right?
We stall out. Tell me your top first, or maybe if you want to say your top 3, and then
I don't
after
have a
that
top
we're just
3
gonna
anymore,
list.
man.
Just gonna list.
I
Out
know
of the order.
I know that we've done that in the past. Like we've discussed, like not in podcasts but with each other. Like, hey, let's top out our favorite bands, and
Yeah.
and that was not good because every time I would just make a list and I was like, no, but this one is but this one is so. But I'm like you. I think I have like a top 2. I don't even know if I have a top 3.
Okay.
But the top 2, you know already. So it's the top one is one of my. Well, I don't know if I could call him a friend, but I've talked to him, not like you on a call, but he texted me. So yeah, he opened up his Facebook Messenger to send me a goddamn question.
Okay. Yeah. He
If
thought
that
about you.
isn't like, yeah, if that is not a commitment to communication, I don't know what that is, right?
If that is not like love.
Yeah. Right? The first band is a band that they're not even together anymore, but it's a band in Kansas, and like they've played like and maybe it's because of that. I'm not even like, I think favorite bands they shouldn't be considered on their on technicality.
Yeah.
I think they, like I said, rock is something that makes you feel.
Yeah.
So they should be based on this. If you're gonna do your top rock bands or whatever, it should be based on feeling. And Abandoned in Kansas played a really important role in a certain period of my life. And their songs, like, they talked like a lot to me. It was a lot of me time with their songs, and that's why till this day I can say it like no problem that a band in Kansas is my favorite band of all times. And like they don't have a lot of albums. They have like 3 or 4 if you count their EPs, like, but they have like a full albums. They have like 3. After that, I would say that it was my first contact with rock, which is Oficina G3, that I've been following them like for, I don't know, 20 years since I was
for many years.
I was introduced. Yeah, and they're old, man. I think they're like 30 years old.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
I would say the top 2 it'd be like these 2, and like I think Oficina G, like, I know all the songs from Oficina G3, and I don't know all the songs from a band in Kansas like by heart, but it's because I've known Oficina G3 longer.
Longer, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's when a band becomes like your favorite, it's because when that happened, what you said, when you spend some time with the band and the songs, they talk to you in a way that kind of change your life and touch your life. The songs touch your life. And I relate to you when you say that with a band in Kansas, because it was, I am very proud to say that we we found out about that band together, right? And we lived like a part of our lives together when we found that band out. And it happened to me with POD. That's why they are my favorite, because I have spent like years and years with them, studying their music, studying the lyrics, learning English from their music, because they are able to mix my favorite styles of, rhythmically and lyrically. So it just becomes your first one, right? It has to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after that, it's just like bunch of bands, a lot of bands. But just say a few names, man. Say a few names that comes to your mind that are bands that you listen to them a lot.
I don't know, man. Like you said, like Petra, I love them. There is another Brazilian band called Resgate, which they're insanely awesome.
And these bands, they're like some of them they're not together, but they've played like 30 years. They've been playing for 30 years, making music for 30 years. Like Resgate, they're forever, man. They've been playing for
yeah.
They're older than me. Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers, man. Their first album is older than me. I'm 35. I think their first album was released the year before I was born. So, and they're still kicking it. Jesus.
Yeah. They're old, man. Old shit. Yeah, I can say Red Hot is an awesome band. Foo Fighters, like you said, like POD, it's amazing. Switchfoot is a band that I love. Audio Adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of Christian background just because what I said, that we could not listen to pagans music, right? So I was obligated to meet these other bands. And when I think about like this was bad, like I don't see this difference anymore, like this this is good and this is bad because they're not talking about Jesus. But I feel like that was part of it, because if I hadn't had that prohibition from my parents, maybe I would have never met these amazing Christian bands that they were kind of very in a specific public, the Christians. So I'm glad that I met them, because I met all the other ones after I grew up, so.
What we have at that time, back then. So I remember discovering a lot of bands playing video game. Remember Tony Hawk Pro Skater?
Yeah.
I used to play that game all the time. So a lot of great bands came from that game, and what we had, it's what we had. And then thank God, in my time, I was able to have some good friends that showed me good stuff. The things that I was involved, they helped me create I consider, what I want to say is that I was in a place where I was able to have contact with a lot of good music. I always say this, my aunt, my grandmother, they have always had like great taste for music as well. They've always liked like those 90s, 80s pop rock bands, those, and I grew up also listening to those things, so it's amazing. Like my grandmother always influencing me with Elvis and all those Italian jazz and all those, like even opera, man. Like, so it's influences that we have that thankfully it wasn't Brazilian funk or sertanejo. And I was born and raised in Goiás, man, surrounded by sertanejo. But thank God, based on the influences I had from my relatives and some friends, I was able to, get the taste for good shit. Look, every episode we record, we should get like quote unquote pearls, right? And some quotes. And then my quote from this episode is this: they're singing shit that I believe in. For me, that's a great line. I'm gonna tweet this shit.
We should make a shirt out of it, right?
For sure, man. We got, look at this. They're singing shit that I believe in. Look, that's a tweetable thing, man. That's a hit.
Nice, man. That was a I think that was a great
heck of a
episode
show,
to
man.
celebrate something that it's so freaking important for us. I think that ever since I've started listening to rock and roll, there hasn't been a day that I went without listening to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because we are two different beings from regular people, but we listen to music every day. Like, for me, it's not like a religion, because the religion thing, it's not like very freaking for me.
Yeah.
Like the religion thing. Like I deal with God on a daily
it's
basis.
different.
Like,
it's different.
but the religion thing, like going to church and the religion thing, especially now that nobody's going anywhere, but like I listen to music like 24/7. Like,
Cool.
when I'm working, I'm listening to music. When I'm listening to podcasts, there's music in the background, most of them. When I'm watching a movie, there's soundtrack. So like music is present in my life, like all the time, like every time. Like I was cooking right before we started the recording, and I was listening to a podcast. And then my wife came to talk to me, and then I couldn't listen to the podcast and talk to her at the same time. So I stopped the podcast and I put on some background music, because I just can't deal with silence.
For sure, man.
So like every time I'm listening to something. And then it was funny, because when I stopped the podcast, I was chopping out some onions, and then there was silence for about 10 seconds. And then I turned around to get my cell phone to put some music on, and she was like, "You're gonna put some music, aren't you?" I was like,
For sure.
Yeah, you know me. Like, yeah, we're gonna talk here, but there's no
music,
way we're gonna do that in silence, right? But then it's fun, because like every day I listen to rock, and it's like, it's not all day, of course, because I like other styles of music, but rock plays a very more important part in my life. That's why I thought it would be like amazing for us to record this episode as an homage to it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and completely agree. And I just wanna, my last words that I wanna say for this episode is that thank God for rock and roll. God gave rock and roll to us, huh?
Yeah, and that's Petra's. We're gonna finish this episode with Petra's God Gave Rock and Roll
Petra's
to us.
version for that shit.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a version for that.
And again, we're here, just Felipe and I, talking about rock because it is important for us. We're not defining anything for sure. It's just our opinions. We talked about the bands that are important to us, and and the bands that have been important to us throughout our lives. So, yeah, man. And I think, not I think, I'm sure that if it weren't for most of the bands that I listen to this day, probably my life would be different, and I would probably not. I wouldn't be like an English teacher. You know, I wouldn't have talked to my friend Sonny Sandoval, Mike Herrera, Patrick Park, because it's a friend of mine now. So, you know, Jeremy Spring. So some of the guys, some of the heroes, quote unquote, that we've talked to, we wouldn't be able to talk to
and
them.
I'm sorry, but these guys, they are nothing compared to the friendship that you and I developed through rock.
Ooh, say no more.
Ain't it?
Yeah,
Right?
say no more.
Because that was our connection. We started connecting to each other through rock. That's it. So that's why I truly believe, like with every fiber of my body, that God gave rock and roll to us.
Yeah.
You wanna leave a message to our listeners?
The message that I
like
want to
a final
leave
message?
is that, guys, listen to rock and roll.
Especially because they're singing shit that I believe. That's it. They're-
Let's go out with that one. Let's go home with that one. Felipe, thank you for your time, and guys, thank you
Thank
for
you,
listening
man.
to us until the end, and just go listen to some rock shit.
yeah.
All right, peace out.
could let